Then obviously COVID hit and we moved it to November thinking we were actually going to be able to meet in person. And here we are on Zoom. So unfortunately, I hope our next session can go in person. But I'll tell you, Tracy and Sarah have done a great job helping develop an agenda. We went from a full day agenda to a 2 hour agenda. So hopefully we'll get all the highlights in, but really appreciate everybody's interest. And we view this forum as open discussion. We'll have a couple presentations, but obviously we want to have some discussion. We want questions. Use the marketing professionals that are here to answer your questions too. That's what this is all about. So with that being said, Tracy, am I turning it over to you or Sarah first? And I'll let both of you introduce yourselves.
Yes, I think that I am kicking everything off. My name is, hold on, I have a weird screen. Here we go. My name is Tracy Hernandez. I currently work with RMF Neuter. I just I made a career change, just started a couple months ago, but I've worked with the engineering side of the business for over 20 years, working with DGL, Albert Kahn, and SSOE. I am going to facilitate this panel today and invite our panelists to introduce themselves and a quick a bio, the size of their firm, the name of the firm, and then the position that they hold within. And we will just kick it off in order of the agenda. So we'll start with Kristen, and we'll ask her to unmute herself. Oh, I should say everybody else should be muted unless you're speaking so that we don't have interruptions. So we'll kick off with Kristen, then Monica, Sarah, Bill, and Kim.
Thank you, Tracy. And thank you, ACEC of Ohio. My name is Kristen Hasnai, and I'm Director of Marketing for Resource International. I have been in the AEC industry since 2003, and I've been with Resource International since 2009. Resource International is headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, with 150 employees and 4 full service offices, 3 in Ohio, 1 in Indianapolis, Indiana, and then several project offices throughout the nation. Resource International is also a woman-owned firm, and our primary focus is civil engineering, construction management, and information technology. So just real quick, I just wanted to say about our marketing department. For 150 employees, we have 4 full-time folks in our marketing department, including myself, 2 marketing coordinators, and a communications specialist. And then we also have a full-time business development engineer, and then the firm's owners who also, are marketers. We think everybody's, marketing in our firm. So, and our department handles all internal and external marketing, proposals, websites, social media, trade shows, conferences, community relations, public relations, and employee engagement. So that's just kind of a little snapshot of myself and Resource International. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Hello, everyone. Monica Mosier, MS Consultants. We are a full AE engineering architecture company. We also provide planning services, and new to the list is marketing as well. I'll talk a little bit about that later. We are about 300 people, 9 offices, 5 states, headquartered here in Columbus, Ohio. I've been with MS Consultants since 2008 officially, but for those who don't know me, it is family owned. So I am the 3rd generation. So by birth, I've been talking about the business pretty much. Graduated from Ohio State, undergrad in marketing, then graduate degree, my MBA, have a subsequent bachelor's in e-marketing as well. MS Consultants marketing department has about 13 individuals. Some are part-time, just like many of you as well. We believe a lot of people in the firm are responsible for marketing, and we cross-train a lot of different types of people, all internal, external marketing services, public relations, anything digital, promo items, events, and being more involved on the planning side. So public engagement, public involvement services for our clients as well. Our data team is mostly housed within our marketing department right now as well. So there's about 3 individuals who are responsible for data, supporting the accounting department, as well as other different areas of the company.
It is so interesting to hear everybody's backgrounds. I'm going to love this day. I'm Sarah Helbig. I'm the Executive Director of Marketing at Jones & Henry Engineers. You're going to hear a little bit more about my kind of background in a little while, so I will hold that off. Our firm has been around for almost 100 years, believe it or not. And that whole time we've been focused on water, wastewater, stormwater, anything water related, everything from rate studies and planning to long-term control plans and compliance issues. So whether it's treatment, building a plant from the ground up, or helping with infrastructure, we kind of do anything that's water related. So let's see, our offices are in Toledo, Cincinnati, and then in Michigan, we're in Kalamazoo. And then in Indiana, we are in Fort Wayne and Carmel. So we're a regional firm, and we are privately owned, and we always have been. It's part of kind of our point of pride of living and working and supporting the region that we live in. Let's see what else. So I'm like just in awe of the size of the teams, because I'm just going, I wear so many hats. I just started there a couple years ago, really brought in as kind of the sales person. And I'll talk a little bit today about the sales versus marketing. I'm interested to see what you all have to say about that. But so I'm the lead across all 3 states for sales and marketing. Cheyenne, who's on, is in our Fort Wayne office, and she helps with some marketing coordination and some social media. And I'm getting her into business development over time. And then in Michigan, I do have one gentleman who's retired who helps with some business development there. Aside from that, I have a proposal coordinator who helps with centrally with everything in our Toledo office. And our principals all do business development, just as you guys all stated. Lots of hats at Jones & Henry.
Bill, do you want to go next?
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, ACEC Ohio, for hosting this event. My name is Bill Sampson. I am currently the Director of Business Development for CT Consultants. CT Consultants is a multidisciplinary architectural engineering and planning firm serving both public and private sector clients. CT has offices in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Tennessee, with a staff of around 275. My responsibilities include driving CT's business and increasing its revenue, identifying and developing new business opportunities, and building and expanding the presence of the company and its brands. My career in the A&E industry spans 35 years, and my approach throughout my professional life has been to develop and foster effective relationships. Obviously, this includes both existing and potential clients, but I also dedicate time to building relationships with potential teaming partners, both large and small businesses. The goal is to deliver a team that consistently provides the best of the best in service to our clients. And again, it's a business philosophy for me. We may be competing today on a particular project with these firms, but tomorrow there may be an opportunity to team. I returned to the private sector end of last year after spending nearly 4 years as the service director in a central Ohio community. I was invited by the mayor to come on board when the opportunity, the previous service director had vacated, and the opportunity presented itself, and they had a couple of large projects they were doing, and he thought my expertise might provide some value. And I was there for nearly 4 years. And honestly, it was a bucket list item for me. We all, in the private sector, we all kind of step back and think, what would it like to be an owner? And I can tell you, it's exciting. I spent my entire career in the private sector, and the opportunity to jump the fence and be that owner was both attractive and very, very educational. Thank you.
I think I'm last to go for the panel, so I will wrap it up quickly here so we can move on. My name is Kim Messer. I'm the Corporate Marketing Manager with LJB. LJB is a national engineering firm. We feel like we're driven to think bigger, so we're always pushing to do the next thing and the next best thing for our clients. We provide civil and structural engineering as well as geospatial health, safety, and environment services. And we have approximately 150 staff members. We're headquartered in Dayton, and we have 3 additional offices in Ohio, as well as offices around the country, which we've recently expanded about the last 5 or 6 years into several other states across the country. Personally, I've been with LJB for 21 years. I started with LJB as an intern and then moved into serving in the marketing role for several of our business units and before moving into a corporate role in 2013. And just like everyone else has said, our group is responsible for really all the marketing that goes on for the firm, obviously. So everything from proposals, social media, brand management, all of those typical marketing services that we all do. Personally, for me, I have a background in journalism, so I'm really passionate about sharing the stories, the cool stories of what our staff is doing and the way it's impacting our clients. So that's, kind of what I'm all about.
Oh, Kim, I had to just make a quick note because when it gets to the guts before glory, I am very excited to hear what you have to add to that presentation because I focused on the narratives and the stories as well. So thank you all to our panelists. Welcome. We are going to move into our discussion topics today. And then to ensure that we're not speaking over each other, I am going to facilitate by asking if you're moved to respond to the topic, and certainly not everybody has to respond to every single discussion topic, but if you just want to raise your hand and then I'll just call you out, I'll mute myself and unmute yourself. Then we did prepare some questions in advance, but certainly I'm going to keep an eye on the chat room as well. Let me do this over. There we go. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat room. If anybody has any questions, we'll definitely pivot appropriately to address those. So getting started, I figured it might be best just to get it out of the way. So what impacts has the pandemic had on your firm's marketing efforts? And can you share any obstacles and or benefits that have occurred over the past or less than a year's time? I see, no, there we go. Kim, thank you.
Sure. So I think for our firm, it's been positive and negative, obviously. I mean, you can look at some good things and some bad, and not necessarily bad, but it's an opportunity to change the way that we reach people. So obviously pretty much every conference that was supposed to happen in 2020 either was canceled or went virtual, which just changes the environment. So we felt like we needed to come up with some other ways that we might be able to reach the same people that we would potentially see in person. So for us, we scheduled several webinars that either were on similar topics to what we would have presented on, or just things that we wanted to be talking to people about that we felt like we, maybe lost that opportunity to share with people through conferences. So we did schedule several webinars over the course of the last, 6 or 8 months. Where we were able to connect with people, at least in that way, where it keeps us in front of them, shares our subject matter expertise, that sort of thing. And then from, I guess you would say a good side, it was, somewhat of a business opportunity for us. We are fortunate to have on our staff actually a couple of individuals who have done pandemic planning before, which is very uncommon, obviously, but we have some people who are former military who had done some pandemic planning within their roles with the military. And so we were able to turn that into a service opportunity where we could take their expertise and help some clients. And we've done some significant work with some K-12 schools that are trying to, work through how to get students in school safely and how to manage if they do have cases and all that kind of thing. So that was a little bit of a challenge just in terms of our marketing plan, what we had planned for the year. Obviously that wasn't on the list when we were planning in the end of 2019 to be doing, multiple webinars, creating marketing materials, videos, all those things that related to our pandemic planning efforts. But that was a nice opportunity to obviously be able to serve clients in that way, because so many people were scrambling and not really knowing what to do in this environment. So that gave us, it did, force us to kind of stretch ourselves for that topic, which was new to everyone. But then also with the webinars we held, we had to change up our tactics, obviously, to reach people in different ways.
I will add to that. So I was just going to say the same on the event side. Events were a huge part of how we were getting kind of more broad awareness as I came onto the firm. And that was something that we hadn't done a lot of in the past. And for me, that meant a ton of travel and time on the road, just because I cover Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, and that is a lot of organizations. So the cost savings alone of just like taking travel and hotels and things like that were a nice chunk to take out of the budget to be able to reinvest in other ways. And I think one of the silver linings is really just being able to be so many places virtually just allows you so much flexibility. So I think you do miss some of the personal connections with people. So follow-up kind of becomes even more critical. But being able to be at meetings like instantly and not having to travel different places or even have time between meetings because you're not running someplace in town has been a real benefit too.
Kind of piggybacking off what Sarah said, communication and like the personal connection with folks. One of our challenges for me, and I think for other people in the firm and clients as well, is all these different types of communication methods. So some clients prefer Zoom, which I personally think Zoom is the most user-friendly platform, but then there's Google Meet, then there's Microsoft Teams. There's just so many different ways. And then I feel like people struggle, the folks that are in the generation where they're not comfortable with technology, they want to just pick up the phone. So one of our struggles has been like learning the person you're talking to and that client. They might not want to do a video call. They might just want to talk with you on the phone. So, but in turn, that's turned into a benefit because you're really getting to connect with people and have that personal connection by picking up the phone. That's kind of what I've been doing, is trying to just call someone and see how they're doing. And I might send an email. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Set up a 5 to 10 minute phone call. And I think that's been very well received. So definite challenge is the array of communication methods. And then the benefit is just once you find that out and the preferred method and how someone wants to communicate, then you can really make that a positive.
Well, I think we all miss the personal interaction. I think that's been, I think, the biggest change for me and my staff. That it's we miss the networking. You miss the that level of communication, that more of the personal information that you may get 30 or 45 minutes with with a potential client. Is now been really kind of got reduced to about 8 minutes, and working with our staff on coaching them on being able to get a virtual meeting set up, get a phone conversation set up, and be able to communicate the message in 8 to 10 minutes, as opposed to what you had previously with a with a personal visit. So that's been a really significant change on the BD front. Certainly less expense reports. We're not traveling as much and not on the road. That's positive and negative. But yeah, it's being able to adapt, and I see my peers in this industry and just how quickly they've adapted to this more virtual environment and these lines of communication, and it's been a very strong positive.
If I can, so we have a question come in, which is exciting. this question is actually for Kim, and it's from Kathy Bass from KS Associates. And she's interested to know what your process is for developing meaningful topics for the webinar that you had mentioned earlier. And then also, what tool or technology are you using to hold those? What's your tool of choice?
Sure. Thanks, Kathy, for the question. Like I mentioned, I mean, we tried to stick to some of the things that we were already planning to present. So we had some like conference presentations that we had been accepted for. And so we were able to just repurpose those into our own presentations. You know, we weren't doing them on behalf of the conference, we just did them ourselves. So that was several of the topics were those, but we just basically either took specific services that we provide that we could talk to people about how they could implement, on their own, or we had some case studies in some cases where, we talked about a specific project or client interaction where we were able to achieve a certain result for them. So we really just looked around the company and tried to think of, what message do we want to get out about either what we're doing or what we've, results we've been able to achieve for our client that we felt like other people could benefit from. And then we just turned that into a hour-long presentation. We tried to hold them over lunches so that it would, maybe not eat into people's normal days. And so that's how we managed it. And in terms of the technology, our typical choice is to use GoToWebinar. We have had good luck with, pretty much anybody being able to download that and utilize the software without a lot of challenges. It's pretty user-friendly. And it's very simple to set up on my side. So I can, once we have the, the basics of the description and the speaker and date and time and all that, I can set a webinar up in about 30 minutes. So it's pretty efficient to be able to do that. And then day of, we've been able to have several people, organize them, present through them, and everybody's been able to use the software without any trouble.
I do have some follow-up questions coming in. I guess just a quick yes or no on this one. Do you provide credits for those who attend your webinars? Continuing education?
Yeah, we do at times. So we actually have an internal LJB University where we're accredited through IACET to provide CEUs. So it's easier for us to be able to provide like a legitimate CEU because we have that LJB University option. We don't do it all the time because there's an administrative component to it that takes our time. So we, kind of decide whether we think it makes sense to offer CEUs. We always do create a certificate that at least gives, lets people know that they attended. And that way, if they can self-report or they can do it themselves, we give them that option by doing that. But GoToWebinar provides that as an option, and it automates to anyone who attend, if they actually did attend, not if they registered, but if they showed up to your webinar, you can automate a certificate. So it's, again, not much effort on our part to make that happen, which helps our side, and it gives them, our attendees, evidence that they were there.
That's great. I did not know that had that option on there. So that's a lesson learned for me today. We have some more. I love going off script, by the way. So I'm excited that lots of comments and questions are coming in here so that we're answering our audience's needs and addressing their questions. And I think I can combine a couple of these. So just real quickly, how are you promoting your webinar? So how do you get your attendees, and then the frequency of the webinars that you've done? And then we'll move on to a couple other questions here.
Sure. So we promote our webinars through social media, obviously. So we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So we advertise those. We try to get them advertised a month in advance, and then do at least one reminder in the meantime. That's typically how we structure that. And then we also, for certain ones, we've sent out email blasts to targeted audience members. So if we know, it fits a certain market or demographic within our within our client database, then we'll, slice and dice that information and send out an email blast to try to entice people to attend. And we also encourage our more technical staff to share it with people that they know and work with and that they think they might be interested in. So we try to make, it easy to, I will proactively send them a link and say, hey, if anybody has clients that they think might be interested, here, send this link out. And they can just do some quick and easy personal emails as well. And from a frequency standpoint, most of the time we hold each event just once, but we've had a couple of webinars where we have actually held one like on a Thursday, and then the following week we would hold it on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, so that, if somebody was out for a week or has a standing meeting on Thursdays or something. So there were a few times where we elected to host the same webinar twice, giving people options. We try not to hold more than, maybe one a month or so, just because it starts getting, especially if you're sending it to the same audience, it starts just getting to be a little too much. People don't have that much free time, even though they're mostly working from home, but it does still keep our name in front of people with that frequency. That's
perfect. Okay, so I have the privilege or the benefit, the luxury of knowing some of you from working with you on the ACEC Ohio Communications Committee. And I know that, I don't know, want to, but I hope that Monica wants to address this, because I know that they have a strong focus of this. But one of the questions are, how are you ensuring employee engagement and maintaining your company culture during the pandemic? And do you see employee engagement and culture playing a role in supporting client relations and marketing efforts? And like I said, I know that Monica their company has quite a bit of a focus on culture as well, and we haven't heard from her yet. So Monica, would you mind kicking us off on that topic again? That's how are you ensuring employee engagement, maintaining your company culture during the pandemic? And do you see that engagement and culture playing a role with supporting the client relation in your marketing efforts?
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. I was going to raise my hand for that one, because we have taken a lot of major steps with all that's been going on there. I mean, for MS, and I know a lot of companies, I mean, our culture and what we are as companies are what make us different, really, oftentimes to clients. So it has to resonate down, right? Who we are as a company is what clients really buy. I mean, we're all hiring very talented individuals, so it's very important. It has been hard. I will say we started with really implementing town halls company-wide. So inviting the entire company, sometimes all at one time, sometimes segmented into groups. So either different business units or service areas or different office locations with the CEO and other C-level suite individuals, and having open, honest conversations about what's going on, and giving individuals an opportunity to voice their concerns or just talk about things in general, right? Because it's been very scary for a lot of people, and they just want to be heard during this time. We combined those town halls with an online Q&A section on our intranet, which is also really, got a lot of positive feedback from the company on, hey, I can't always feel like I'm ready to voice that in front of everyone to the CEO, but I'm comfortable writing it. And it's a resource. We keep all the questions up for everyone to access at any point in time. So really doing a lot of training with our VPs and our PMs on what information we want them to have and what we expect them to be pushing down to the rest of the company as well. So in pretty much every meeting, talking about some of these key issues outside of what we generally would on just communication pieces. And then keeping it fun, right? So for MS, it's like, this is all, it can be very, we all feel like we're in Groundhog's Day, right? So it's switching it up as much as possible. So we had like a pumpkin contest that we did where people just submit photos, and then we had like a Zoom award ceremony for those that won. We're getting ready to kick off like a virtual bowling contest. And sometimes, at least within the marketing department and others, it's, holding these meetings that are more like happy hours. I mean, we'll talk about work, but it's really just to share and connect with everyone. So not everything has to be, so detailed focus on, hey, these are our metrics and this is what we're doing in the department. We have to take the time to still be human and still be fun with each other. And we've made sure to resonate that throughout the entire company.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else have something on top of that to share that their company may be doing in addition, or maybe taking a different direction on that? Go ahead, Kristen.
Thanks, Tracy. So kind of like what Monica said, we actually have a fun committee that was formed a few years ago. And I feel it's gone, at first I was like, do we really have time for this type of fun when we're supposed to be taking care of clients and getting proposals out the door? But it's been very well received because it just helps keep employee morale up and keep people happy, especially during this time of year. So we are doing different things with the fun committee. We really try and come up with new ways to get our other offices involved, because our corporate headquarters is the largest office. So we want to make sure to include everyone. So that's what our communications specialist, she kind of leads up the fun committee. But it's been very well received. And we also did a contest for Halloween, and then we gave gift cards out, just little ways to show appreciation to the employees. And then we've also been making our monthly internal newsletter a priority. And people send in little tidbits about, what's going on. We recognize employees. And I think that that's very important to just keep everybody happy and make sure everyone's being included. So that's just a little something we do for morale.
I think that's great. And I really appreciate the question because in my past experiences, marketing is heavily involved also in helping attract and retain good staff members as well. So there are times when we are, assisting or helping with some of those efforts with the HR departments or the firm owners. And so I think that's a very timely question. So, and that I should have mentioned, that was from Brianna Wooten. So thank you, Brianna, for that question. Moving forward, I guess, following back up quickly, one of the questions that came into me is that wondering if you're concerned about competitors attending your webinars and jumping in on that, and if you take measures to control your audience, if you're trying to limit attendees and along those lines.
Yeah, that's a good question. And to answer it directly, no, we don't limit who can come, and we don't try to keep competitors away. But we do, obviously, we're not giving away any kind of secret sauce in these webinars. And we believe, that nobody can replicate what we're doing just off of an hour-long webinar, obviously. So we try to keep it as impactful and informative as we can, so that people can take away, they can walk away with some kind of action item or something, to think about or apply to their positions. But at the same time, we're not giving away a complete how to do it. There's always going to be some level of risk that somebody may try to, repeat or replicate something that you're doing, but we always believe that we're going to do it better. That we, if we were there first, or we have, that we're not going to shy away from sharing what we're doing or providing value to people just on the chance that somebody will steal ideas from us.
Well, and I know Bill mentioned this in his introduction as well. There are often times where our competitors become our partners, and so we. Especially, I think during these times, we're focusing on, when I was at DGL, we used the term community over competition, where you come together to ensure that you have, that you're providing a service or product that's for the greater good of the community versus just, not being a good neighbor, if you will. Oh, yes, go ahead, Monica.
On that note, I mean, just like what you're doing here, Tracy, being a moderator, for MS at least, you have to have a moderator, someone looking at if there is someone who shouldn't be in the webinar causing some issues, being able to kick them out, being able to mute people, being able to field Q&A. It's so important.
Yes. Sticking along those lines or staying with the topic of webinars, we have a comment about webinar fatigue, which I think could fatigue too, right? So, and this is from John Zemansky, and he's saying, you know, guilty as anyone. I know we've all done it. During the webinar, checking emails, you know, doing some other things. And so he's saying, you know, how do we try to avoid this going forward? How do you ensure engagement? I mean, even during this webinar or this forum, any tips on keeping people engaged, or how you yourself commit to staying engaged during these meetings? Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I feel like I'm monopolizing the discussion on webinars, but I'll just share that we try really hard to have strategically placed poll questions in our webinars so that it kind of forces people to answer a question or give an opinion about something. And we try to do that, you know, towards the beginning, in the middle, towards the end. We also work in some video elements or something that is going to be different than just hearing one person talk over PowerPoint for the entire hour. That helps. And then, like Monica mentioned with the moderator, whenever I moderate, I purposely interrupt the speaker with questions or clarifications that are coming in through the chat, just to like break up the monotony of one person talking. So that can help too. And just, you know, if somebody is a little distracted and they hear, another voice, or they hear a question, or they're like, oh, I'm supposed to answer a poll question. I mean, I think just human nature is that we want to respond, you know, like we want to do what they're asking us to do. So that has been relatively helpful. We do look at the analytics that come off of the webinar. So you can see in the analytics how engaged people were. And obviously if they ask questions, that's all being tracked. So we tend to, you know, focus on those people a little more heavily when we do follow-up, because we know that they were more engaged and are potentially more interested in the topic, or may have, you know, interest in working with us more so than, you know, somebody who was 20% engaged on the webinar.
I was just going to add to that too a little bit. You know, for us, even like today, we said there's recognition. I think that's a lot of it, just recognizing that that is an issue, and taking your message and like, could you talk for an hour? Sure. But if you talk for a half hour, let's get to the main core of what you want to say. And I think it's good to coach people. If you know you're going to have an online webinar, put people on who are more engaging. So, I mean, we will all work with engineers. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people are just better at presenting than others, and it's okay to co-present or give them some tips or help break them in. So maybe put somebody who's really dynamic as the moderator to kind of help break it up. So I just, and we've been doing engaging on recruiting as well, has all become virtual. So it is like our staff too, not just like the audiences, but our own staff. I think you have to watch how much time are people being asked to do all the virtual learning. It's, you know, not just the kids.
Well, and I know for myself, I do try to use my camera. Before we officially started the meeting, I am just waiting for Snapchat and Zoom to combine forces. So they gave me a filter, so I am Zoom ready all the time. But if I'm showing my face during a meeting, I am more engaged. You know, there are times where, you know, I'll have to toggle off because I have to be responsive to clients. And if they call, I typically will pause and take a call, but I do try to ensure that I am blocking out the time. That's just for me. So I have a proposal. We are at 10:42. I did practice my presentation that I am giving later during the forum. And I know that I am not going to utilize the full 20 minutes. So I am willing to give up a few minutes of that time and still ensure that we end at 12. If we can just take a couple more minutes, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. All right, great. So, and maybe we can have time at the end to answer any additional questions. But I know I had asked around about a month ago of some questions that people wanted to have answered. I know that one of these is, how do you manage marketing strategy, SEO, overall positioning, overall messaging with regard to website, blog, social media, and still get proposals out the door? Does anybody want to give a minute long answer on that? Because I know that we have two more that I know our audience members want. Go
It cut out. Did you see me? I mean, I can make mine short and sweet. Planning up front. I always like to start with social. Have your annual calendar, have a strategy, put it in there, and then cross-train individuals to help you with it. And Hootsuite is my savior. I don't know if you all use that or different platforms, but you can pre-schedule a lot of stuff. Certainly things will come up, but if you have that annual plan, if you have the calendar set, that is one thing off your plate. And of course, we can do annual business plans for all kinds of other marketing activities. So as much as you have that plan up front, it's going to help you just throughout the entire year.
Yeah, so similar to what Monica said with the cross training, the way we have managed the ebb and flow of proposals, because sometimes you'll have a month where you're just slammed, and then another month maybe you aren't as slammed. So we have within our staff, we've got a staff of 4 full-time marketing people, and we have one person that is designated as a pure proposal coordinator. That's primary responsibility. But then we have 2 other people who have experience and expertise ability to do proposals. So we essentially, kind of the proposal coordinator is the first line of defense. And then the other staff has other marketing roles, social media, messaging, all that other stuff. But we know that if capacity in proposals becomes an issue for our proposal coordinator, then we have 2 outlets to be able to get those done. So it's not necessarily that our one proposal coordinator has to work, 50 hours of overtime because we got slammed. We're able to, spread that wealth among the 3 of us if we have to. But we try to keep our other 2 people focused on non-proposal marketing as we can. And like Monica said, with the planning, we really try hard to have a plan in advance so we know what marketing tactics we need to be working on, as well as, knowing that there is always going to be a constant proposal churn, and we need to be able to manage how much time does it take. So when a proposal comes in the door, we need to be able to look at, how much time investment is this going to be, and what are our chances of winning. So that's part of our go, no go process as well. So, how much of a time investment is it to put together a proposal? How much potential profit are we going to make off of this? Are we going to spend it all putting the proposal together? We ask ourselves those kind of questions in the go, no go process as well, because if it's going to take us off of all of our other important marketing efforts, is it really worth doing? So that's one filter that we put on proposals.
That's great. I know during the conversations that I was leading up to this forum today, I was talking with Bill about his experiences and helping identify or maybe give tips of how, marketers, whether it's, newer marketers, or I guess what will we call those of us who have over 20 years of experience, how do they make a difference and really add benefit to the firm, helping not only, their career progression, but the firm as a whole? What are some ideas or tips that you have so that marketers can truly make a difference in their firm's success as well as their own?
I think it's really, and I look at our CT culture, that it's really finding, and it's a talent-based culture, is finding what people enjoy doing, what they like to do. They may be they may enjoy, being a designer. If they're an engineer, they may enjoy being a designer, but they don't necessarily want to participate in presentations. They just don't. It isn't part of their own professional ambition. They may not enjoy it. It's really finding what people my firm has done a great job of really kind of dissecting and working with our staff to really, whether it's BD or engineering staff, professional staff, that it's a what is the best fit. You may have an ambition to go a different direction. Being able to get that all on the table, and the company's willingness to invest in that initiative. And I think that's, for me, that's been really the strongest push, coming back to CT end of last year, that I've really embraced, is that it's finding people aren't going to be happy unless they enjoy what they're doing. And that's part of our culture. And if you've got an idea that you're doing one particular scope of work, scope of services, job description now, and you've got ambitions to do something else, that opportunity exists. So, and I think that's working with my peers again in this industry, that seems to be a very strong initiative, for other firms as well, is really finding out what people really want to be doing and giving them that opportunity.
Great, thank you for that. Does anybody have anything else to add on that about, how we make a substantial difference to our firm's success and our own?
I mean, data is your friend there. So, I mean, when we're talking about clients and have we been successful and is it worthwhile? It's, do we have data that captures our current success rate and how often potentially we have been talking to that client, what sort of feedback we've given. So my recommendation to anyone on any marketing level is find a way to measure what you're doing so you can report on it to make more informed decisions.
That's great. And again, really enjoying all this conversation. I want to help get us back on track here, but I feel one topic that everybody always asks or inquires about, and it's more from an organizational standpoint, is how do your firms and how do you manage and organize all of your collateral, project descriptions, how you're identifying that information, and just the overall organization, so that you have some solid tools readily available when you need them. And I know Kristen at Resource International has a really unique process.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, so when I joined the firm back in 2009, Resource International didn't really have like a central place to store everything. So we are blessed to have an IT department who helped us create a Java-based database for all of our project tracking. And so in this database, we have every project that we win or lose is in there. And it's very cool because you can put who your sub-consultants are, you can put your project description in there. We're working on, we don't have the project photos tied to it yet, but it's basically like our Bible. We are in this database constantly. The whole firm has access to it, so anybody can go in and look up who worked on a project, and then it ties to our accounting system. So you can see, Joe worked on this project. Let's make sure that gets on his master resume. So it's kind of like it's a nice centralized area, but you still have your challenges of maintaining it and making sure that database is updated. So of course we still have those challenges, but one tip that I have is in our proposal process, just like you're putting together your go, no-go meeting, you need to have the follow-up in, hey, let's save out anything new from that proposal so we have it on file, update your master resume. So we also have an intern that helps with some of that basic administrative type tasks. by updating the databases and then going back. So I don't know what I would do without these databases. One other thing is they're so helpful that we actually have other firms come to us when we're partnering with them, and they might be the prime consultant and they say, hey, can you tell us what we've worked on with you? And so that's actually kind of a big compliment that I'm like, our database really is good, the way we hold all our collateral and organize it, because we're able to give them that information to help them. So again, though, I think it's always very challenging, you know, updating resumes and getting everything in that one spot. We're not perfect at it, but you know, that's how we manage.
Does anybody else wish to comment on that topic? No hands, no hands. All right. So with that, again, in the hopes of getting us back on track here, what we're going to do now is we'll have Sarah give her presentation and share with us disrupting engineering with marketing, and then we will have a short break, and then we'll finish up with I'll share a quick presentation on Guts Before Glory, and then we can have discussion from that. So with that, I'm going to mute and allow Sarah to take the stage here. And Sarah, I do not hear you if you were talking, just to let you know.
Thank you. Just getting things arranged here. I can see the chat, so that's helpful. Tracy, feel free to jump in if anyone raises their hand. I'm gonna just look at my presentation so that I don't look like I'm staring off into space to you guys. And I think we've all been talking about, you know, not talking for 45 minutes straight, and this is only 30, but I'd love to have some time for discussion. So definitely jump in. There's a lot of topics covered. I'd love to hear from some of you guys and what your experience is. If you know me at all, you'll know that I'm pretty candid, and I'm a straight shooter. So that's what I plan to do today. It is kind of funny, you know, we're all like, I feel like I'm more among friends than I am among competitors, because there's so much shared experience. I'm just really happy that ACEC has provided the forum for us to be able to have the conversations today. I think it's an excellent opportunity. So I hope everyone feels that way, and you just jump in with any thoughts that you have. So we started talking about how to, you know, share my experience. And the one thing that kind of came to mind throughout the last few years was this idea of disrupting things. And disrupt is an interesting word because there's a couple different definitions. And one is you're causing a disturbance or a problem. And the second one is really about a radical change by means of innovation. And that's a much more positive perception. But I think what's so critical about that is making sure that you stay on the positive side of things and not just come in like kind of a bull in a china shop. But I feel like disrupt is a lot of summary of some of the experiences I've had in my career. And so I thought it was a good theme to kind of share with you guys today. So here's my non-traditional introduction. You'd probably never guess it, but when I was young, I was so shy that like I would cry when people spoke to me. And I don't know exactly at what point that got switched, but you can see that now I essentially get paid to talk to people. So in the marketing and sales role. So if you have a child who's very shy, there is hope for them. Secondly, I really like people. And as Bill was saying earlier, I do miss that aspect of being out at events and just really connecting with people. It's hard to replace that. But I know, you know, Kristen, I think earlier was saying, because everyone's in that situation, just picking up the phone and talking to people can be really impactful right now. So I found that as well. From something else you should know about me is I feel like emotional intelligence is really critical. I'm not sure if anyone else has had experience reading articles, et cetera, about that and thinking about how that can apply to your firm. but it's definitely an area to check out. I actually did a presentation about that at a couple of industry organizations for like the administrative side of things, and people responded to it really well. So if you know about any of these tests, if you're a Myers-Briggs junkie like I am, I'm an ENFJ every single time I've ever taken the test. And Enneagram is something I'm kind of new to, but I'm discovering I'm an 8. If you don't know what that is, maybe something to Google a little bit later. Overall, I'm a seeker of silver linings. So even through this past year, I have found, I have 2 sons, and I would say as 2 full-time working parents, I would not give up the past year because I don't know any other time that you'd have so much time with your family. And I also think when we go through trials that you kind of connect to people differently. And that is something I've seen happen through client relationships and through our work and peers. So I'm a silver lining kind of gal. So I hope you've been able to find some too. Also, I'm a solver. That's how I would describe myself. And I need challenged. And I think you'll see that has probably helped with some of the things I've done throughout my career. So I like to solve problems. Let's see here. Back on track. All right. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about my background. Tracy and I were talking about the conference, or the forum rather, and she's like, I don't think that you understand how different your background is than a lot of people who may have come into the AEC kind of category. So I actually started in fine arts when I was growing up. I knew I wanted to be a painter. I ended up being a printmaker and an art historian. And I also, throughout that experience, learned about design. And so I have 3 bachelor degrees. And the third one was what led me into the design world and into an advertising agency. And the agency was called Wonder Group. So that's where I started my career. And it was a really niche firm. And so we did work for kids and moms. So I worked on like toy companies. I worked on Limited 2, Pillsbury, ConAgra, things like that, that were about the child and mom shopping experience and decision making together. I did, package design for foods, all kinds of things that were more B2C. But the interesting thing was, even as an intern, I got a really unique opportunity to work with the CEO. He saw that I was a thinker and he pulled me in, and I'll never forget the project because I feel like it changed the trajectory of my career. He had me do research on all of the icons like the Trix Rabbit, the Pillsbury Doughboy, etc., and learn about why they were so influential in decision making. And so what I really started to discover was the psychology of sales and really understand who you were targeting and what they needed to hear from you in order to be kind of catapulted into making a purchase. So from there, it's interesting, it's kind of a big jump, but I worked for a packaging firm in Sylvania that was, yes, I'm responsible for kids bugging you for cookies in the store. I love it. My husband actually won't let me go grocery shopping with him because I will buy things based on like how much intent I can tell their packaging was invested in. So he tries to keep me away from the grocery store. But my kids love me to go. So at any rate, that packaging experience actually brought me to a firm in the Toledo, Sylvania area called Tailford Mitchell. And I built out a whole creative team there. They did work for Disney, etc. And the guy that owned it actually had also had a firm in building products. And so he said, hey, I want you to do what you did in packaging, but on the building product side, and come over to this other business called Interrupt. And so I worked in building products, and that is a weird transition, but I'm telling you, the sales psychology part of it was really interesting for me there, because in building products, there are so many people that are involved with the business decision between contractors and builders and distribution, et cetera. You really had to look at what their needs were. And I understand who all those different audience members are and how the messages needed to be different for each of them. And that was one of those continuity points throughout my career. So I went from there and I was recruited for a company that's in New York, and they were called MMC. And I worked remotely for them for about 5 years. And they were a big data company, essentially. Our clients were building products, manufacturers like AZEK Decking, et cetera. And this was when the digital era really kind of came full circle. So we helped build out databases nationally of who are all of the decking contractors in the country, for instance. And we would figure out what their current product preferences were and what they needed to hear to move to a new product. So that was kind of, again, that same market. Now, throughout that time, you know, on a personal side, my dad got really sick, et cetera. I had been traveling a lot and I said, hey, I need to take a break. And when I was getting ready to kind of come back into things, I said I needed a new challenge. So I had all this creative direction, client management background. I had done sales for Interrupt Marketing, where I was actually going out and prospecting and strategy. I had done copywriting, design, just kind of all of these different things, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with it. But I felt like I had been in building products at that point for almost 15 years. And I heard about this firm in Toledo called Jones and Henry Engineers. And they were looking for someone to kind of come in and do things differently. And so I became the executive director of marketing. And part of that decision was understanding, you know, for me, what are those things that said this is a good fit for me? And one was they have a unique market experience. So being very focused in water, wastewater infrastructure, just made it very niche and less broad. And I felt like that was really something that I could help tell the story around. I'm very interested in the environment. I did have like a Kids Saving the Earth club when I was in elementary school. Maybe that tied me into this. But I liked that we were regional. I had been doing national work and I just really wanted the idea that like what I was doing was impacting right where we were. So that was really nice for me. And then from a talent and trust standpoint, they had been in business for literally almost 100 years. So the longevity of the business made me have confidence in telling their story. And there was recognition of a need. So the predecessor, his name was Homer. He'd been with the firm for 42 years on the sales side. He's an awesome gentleman, so much knowledge. But in that, they were very focused on sales. And there were a lot of things from a process standpoint that could be more unified across their different locations. So that background really brought me into the firm. And one of the things that I first noticed that was a surprise until I was in there was really this dynamic. And I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. So I hope someone else kind of shares if they have been through this perspective. But internally, I understood that the difference between sales and marketing was not clear for them, the way it was coming out of a different industry for me. There was, you know, so the way that they related those two things was one and the same. They called the position the director of marketing, but really the role with that was what I would assume was sales, like the business development side. And so for me, there was a big gap in what I saw from a marketing standpoint and really getting all of their tools developed and consistency in messaging, et cetera. Has anybody else kind of experienced that? Feel free to pop in if you have.
Yeah, we're seeing questions that's why my title is Marketing Operations Director from Jenny Wall.
Absolutely.
Becky Vogel absolutely agrees with you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Marketing,
Yes.
sales, marketing operations, actual marketing. Yeah, so I'll keep going, but maybe this is something we can kind of come back to. Yeah, exactly. What they consider marketing wasn't actually true marketing. Having come from an agency and having that background of like developing logos and brand. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one, Kathleen, who feels like it drives them crazy, because this is like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So I literally spent a whole marketing meeting at one of our quarterly meetings describing, and like I created a graphic and mapped it out, what is marketing versus sales, and how everyone in our firm is part of our marketing when they are out and representing us, whether it's a plant tour before an RFP, or, you know, out at industry meetings. I need everyone to understand they are some of those early pieces of marketing. And then it turns into sales when we actually identify a need and you can kind of move it through the sales funnel. Preach. I love it. I'm glad it's not just me. So, I got real busy. So speaking of Bull in a China shop, they were looking for change, and I think everyone received things very well. And I've been lucky in that they knew that they needed change, but weren't really sure what they needed. And so we went to town, and I have one person really helping me internally, and she's a great production designer. Her name is Brenda. I can kind of lay the groundwork for what we need. And then we went to organizing all of the content. So we literally updated probably 60 plus at this point, case studies. And this means a lot of data management and really making sure write-ups are proofread and tell the right story for all of those projects. We also in the past had not highlighted kind of key attributes of the projects. So you'll see over at the side, how did we do on our schedule? How many change orders were there? What was the budget? And who is the appropriate reference point? So we really set those all up. We updated all of our resumes, and we actually built them in 3 different formats. We had resumes in the past were a pain point also. We had lists of projects that people had built, but not really resumes. So we didn't really show where people's educations were when we had resumes out. It was literally a list of the projects they had worked on in that area. I wrote bio introductions for every single person in our firm, which meant emailing them a couple of questions, getting a traditional resume, and kind of boiling all that down. So all that work has been done. We've also redid headshots for everyone. And we've started to build out kind of the wider tools. So we have these sell sheets for each of our states. And it's really just given us like a breath of fresh air, updated all the advertising. We're now doing consistent advertising across all 3 states, et cetera. So one little slide to sum up a whole lot of work. But some of those challenges, I mean, we've talked about them today, have been, I never knew that engineers and people in general that working on technical projects, obviously they're going to photograph things from a technical standpoint and make sure that we have proof of things being done at certain stages. But I would think within like 1,000 photos, there would be a couple that would be good for marketing, but that's been a challenge. So I actually did a little session with our principals to say, here are 5 or 6 useful tips in taking some marketing photos when you're out on a job too, even if it's just for before and afters. So that's helpful. It's helping, these things take time. Getting case study write-ups is always a challenge, and having them be, really about what the need was versus the technical side. Doing more with less. So especially this year with the pandemic, I think, for us, we've had a great year. I think when I listen to the communities in the states, next year is a concern, just with tax revenues being impacted this year. So everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens. Timelines are always challenging, getting proposals out the door when you're on the back end of, getting everything from everybody. We've started to do things like I've put together an input sheet that literally outlines everything that's needed, and we highlight what we need and give them back to everyone way in advance. And that's really helped versus just waiting to get everything. So kind of taking the bull by the horns there has really made a difference. Resumes I mentioned versus work experience, getting bios, and just overall consistency. The big thing for me within all of those write-ups, as I mentioned from my career, is really understanding who the audience is and what are their needs. So because we all work in such a technical profession, it is great to have technically written out what the project did, but not everyone who reads the proposals are going to be highly technical people. So you may have someone connected to the community or even like a public works director that might not be at the technical level. They need to understand what the benefit was. And so having that clear, larger, what challenge was up front and what benefit did this really deliver in the end has to ring true, even if you do have all of the technical kind of magic in between that everyone that worked on it's so proud of. I don't want to downplay the importance of that, but we have to also just kind of tell the broader story. So I'm sure that taps into some of the challenges that you guys have had as well. Tracy, interrupt me if anyone has questions or, I see comments coming in, which is great.
Yes. Yes. So essentially everybody has experienced, which is not a surprise, right? They've experienced a lot of things that you have experienced as well. So we're getting some preach comments about marketing is sales, communications, PR, it is all the things. And then also talking about trying not to get caught too much on the terms that we use, as long as everybody understands the responsibilities that come along with the terms and the consistency with which we apply them.
Right.
And then John said, yes, images are a huge challenge. And I think we can all agree with you there.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have all those ingredients. And then the whole other side of it is, how do you really want to reach everyone? And especially, we started our discussion today on COVID-19 and really how that's impacted everything. So that channel mix all has to be tweaked because those live events have kind of moved along, at least for the time being. Our firm at the time, because we were more focused on the sales side of things, didn't really have a clear marketing budget set up. And so I came in and at least captured what had been done in the past, and also was able to share some knowledge from the industry on what % of overall revenue a marketing budget can fit in, and where we can fit in within that, and should be for wanting to have a growth goal. So that was a good kind of opportunity to share some educational value from other industries and within AEC with the team. So that's something that's always going to be a challenge. I mean, we all have to prove out kind of our ROI, and there's always that gray area in marketing. But that's something that's been a big focus. So overall, that messaging focus, again, moving from technical to needs-based, has been a huge transition for the team. A lot of that I still help with, just because if you are a very highly technical person, that's your gift. And I think a big part of that is respecting that that's where people come from, but helping them make that transition. So in truth, it's kind of back to the basics, right? So if you came out of marketing, or that's like what you were trained in educationally, at the end of the day, it's good every once in a while to stop and kind of step away from the day-to-day and go, okay, who are all the individual audiences I'm trying to hit? What are their needs? What's the distinct message that I need to make sure I'm delivering in order to connect with them? How can I help myself stand out against competitors? And in our industry, we have national competitors, regional competitors, local competitors, and they all have kind of a different angle on that. And it really impacts how you stand out. So those are just some truth points that I've experienced that I think are good kind of gut checks to go through every once in a while. The sales focus challenge, I would say, just comes back to targeting. There's a lot, and Bill, I can tell from your experience, I'm sure you would have a lot of things to add to this, but we've really helped look at, what regions are we wanting to play in? And as you said, playing to natural strengths that happens internally on your bench, but it also happens with the market. So I always tell people when we're looking at assessing whether we should go after an RFQ, is that the kind of work we want to do, right? So just because something came up and it fits in our strength, or it fits in our capabilities, is it the kind of work that we want more of? Are we profitable on that work or not? And then also putting the kind of work that we're most profitable and that our team is passionate about out in our marketing efforts, because that's what we want to attract. Sometimes I think it's easy to just kind of go through the motions of doing things because that's what we have case studies for, but really also making sure that's what we want to share and that's what we want to draw in and how we want to grow. Then there's the whole sales pipeline side. Tracy and I are having some discussions about that. In terms of data, there's a lot of different CRM opportunities out there depending on what you want to invest in. We are right now using Salesforce, but we use kind of one seat of it as a central repository. And I manage leads through just Excel and kind of working that way. It seems to be the most fluid way for me to work with our principals. but then I track everything in Salesforce as well. I think within the sales pipeline, one of the key things is always going to be, no matter what industry you're in, those follow-ups and just having commitment to scheduled time in order to do it. And I will be the first to admit I am having a hard time with all the different hats I wear, really keeping time on my schedule to do those, just making time for calls. So it's a big challenge this year, especially with so much out there virtually. So speaking of just getting it all done, best utilizing time, doing more with less, and I called it COVID selling, right? So there's less one-to-one, definitely an increase in digital, and the impact on our revenue, not the firm, but like just on our clients. Our work is largely municipal. And so I'm sure many of yours is as well. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. So having salespeople contacting you. I think the point Kristen made earlier of kind of seeing like, how are you doing? That's what I've been doing as well. Just like, is everybody making it through the year? And then kind of getting to past the personal point of, what are you planning for and what's kind of still on the docket? So those are some of the bigger challenges. Some of the victories that have come out of the time that I've spent there so far are being open to disruption, really understanding that our firm has understood that they needed to do something different after so many years, and they're willing to kind of give me this, we'll try it out and see mentality versus being afraid of doing things new. And I appreciate that. Having someone saying, all right, if that's what we want to do, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, that's fine. That's much better than someone putting the kibosh on an idea just because it's new and different. I've also found that within engineering, the partners there are really willing to put in the work. Everyone in this industry, it's a service industry. And if you've ever worked on the commercial side where people are purchasing from you, but it's more a product, it's not the same. There is definitely a mentality of being really invested in the business and really wanting to serve others. And that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. So I love working with people who are also willing to put the work in. When it comes to all of the details and project management, case studies, et cetera, I think a lot of that success comes from being really detailed. And so working with engineers, and I shared a little earlier too, I'm married to one as well. So it's like I get it on both ends. But all of that attention to detail is really helpful from a marketing standpoint because tracking everything becomes really critical. And mostly, it's great because I'm working with people who love what they do. When I first came to the firm, I made a point of reaching out to everyone to say, as part of their bios, what is it that why did you do this work? What do you love about your role? And every single person said, hey, at the end of the day, we are helping people and we are, sorry about that. We are making a difference in the environment, et cetera. And so they're passionate about what we do outside of work. And I think that's really critical. I know we have some questions coming in, but hopefully that just gives you a little perspective on some of the unique experiences I've had in terms of some challenges. It sounds like we share a lot of those, as well as some victories and some truths along the way. So I hope that was interesting, just to hear another perspective of someone in the industry. And I would love some conversation or questions.
Sarah, Leanne asked earlier, and I wanted to wait to the end of that, if you were willing to share your photo needs sheet. So I take that as, how are you organizing or coming up with that tracking mechanism or that flag, if you will?
So the tips on how to take a good photo that I gave out, or like how we're organizing the back end of things?
I don't know, but why don't you go ahead and hit do? I'm watching for Leanne's comment on that, but yeah.
Feel free to unmute and chat.
Hi, I can answer that. Hi, I'm Leanne.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi, I'm interested in knowing how you organize it on the back end. And maybe I misunderstood, but I thought you were actually giving pointers to the field staff or project managers who actually go out on site on, these are the kinds of photos that we are looking for. And I thought there might have been some kind of organization so you could hand it to them and say, okay, when you're out there, make sure you get these kinds of photos over a period of time.
Well, I haven't asked them to organize it in any way. The tips that I provided them were more on the kinds of photos I'd like for them to take. Simple things, really, that any of us would probably go, well, duh, you know, but when they're not used to thinking about that way, they're looking for, you know, documenting that things are done. And I'm going, well, don't take a photo with somebody in it if there's an OSHA violation going on, like, you know, and I'm not saying we do that, but it's just kind of a silly example. Because I think engineering firms, like other people I've talked to too, some of them actually will shy away from showing any project photos that have photos or have people in them just for the chance that there could be something wrong. It's, you know, so take a lot without. Simple things like I've received pictures back of a lab and I'm like, you guys, tuck the trash can around the back corner of the counter before you take the picture of the lab because it's beautiful, but I don't need the trash can in the photo, you know? But if you're not a person that's used to looking at images like that, it's just not something that you think of. And I would say that to them too, if they were here, so. We like to laugh and have a good time, but it's just those little things, you know, a great angle on something or a reflection in the water can end up being a beautiful cover shot later. One of the things that's been challenging is just kind of keeping up with trying to identify projects on the front end of saying, hey, that's going to be a great project to document, that we should be getting photos throughout the process versus kind of hearing about it later. So one thing I have changed is making sure I'm aware of everything as it comes through, because I tend to be very involved with the proposals, but not necessarily everything that's been like a letter of intent. And so I want to make sure things don't fly by without me even knowing that they started. So I try to, you know, at least we have a monthly sales meeting, and that helps me stay aware, and then also quarterly, and anything that's a new project that's kind of coming into the books, our financial team just copies me on those so I can kind of see what's larger projects and reach out to the team. It's still challenging, I'm not gonna lie, to just kind of keep track of everything, but the more engaged that you are, and I think letting the engineering team know that you're there because you want to be able to show the world, you know, the great work that they're doing so they can do more of it. And just having that open communication is helpful. Kim, I see you shaking your head too.
Sarah, we have another question that popped up, and anybody feel free to go to the chat room if you want to share what type of CRM software programs you were using to answer Jim's question there. I know Sarah said that she is using Salesforce. So, and I see Tech and Essential, which is what Neuter uses. I can tell you that DJ used HighRise. So moving forward, so this is from Elizabeth Barron from CT. She's saying, what is a good way to incorporate a younger, less experienced staff member who is super passionate about what he or she does into your messaging and or client facing events? Do you have those experiences, Sarah, that you can share on that for a minute or so?
Cheyenne, if you are there, you should open up your video for a minute and say hello to everybody. So just as an example, Cheyenne is on today. She's from our Fort Wayne office. And she has been with our firm on a kind of administrative side, and expressed to me, and I found out she's an amazing illustrator, like amazing. So she's been able to jump in and do some things for us that were really unique on social media that most people wouldn't be able to do, like custom illustrations that nobody else is going to be buying for stock. So I really value that perspective. And she's been helping out too in her region with recruiting events and going out with our HR team. So that helps her learn about the kind of people we want to bring on board. And we're just getting her started doing some kind of cold calling on the sales side too. So I think that's helpful. I don't know, Cheyenne, maybe you have something to say about that too. I'm not sure.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheyenne with Jones and Henry in the Fort Wayne office. like Sarah said, yeah, I love to do work with social media aspects for the company. I think that's a strong window for any company and their marketing aspects. And it really helps kind of show the company culture and show what kind of company we are and what kind of people we are and how we do things. And it also engages with kind of the younger generation too, who really use social media. And it's also a really great recruiting tool as well. And I really enjoy that. And it's a great way to kind of show what we do here at Jones and Henry in kind of a visual representation in a creative way as well.
I think I have to come to terms with the fact that maybe I'm not the younger generation anymore.
Same.
No, I think that's a really good question. I struggle too with, we've made the transition and it's like, this is a topic that could be its own forum of presenting our proposals in Adobe products versus Word, and the challenges that that brings internally with the engineering staff and principals who want to be able to edit things. So Cheyenne has also some of that knowledge, so she can help me out in her region. That's helpful. There's lots of little things that I feel like one of my challenges is like give some of that up and really let other people help. Versus being tied so close to it. So I think you're only as good as the people that you have helping build out your team.
I don't want to embarrass her. I know that she's on the call. So, but Megan Sheehy is DGL's marketing lead now. And when Megan joined the firm, and I mean, over 20 years of my experience has been in marketing for engineering firms. So, it can be a revolving door. I mean, it seems like a lot of us on this call have been in the industry quite a long time, and that's impressive. But, you know, it's very fast paced, very demanding, and some people don't last. So I did not want that to occur when Megan joined the firm. So I just kind of was like, what do you love to do? What do you want to do? And we'll try to get you to do that most of the time. You know, there are definitely times where, you know, we all have tasks that we don't enjoy doing, and there are things that inspire us more than others. But when she joined, I just wanted her to stay for the long haul and really enjoy what she was doing and be able to learn from her and hopefully me teach her a couple things along the way. But engaging, you know, somebody who's greener or at least new to the industry without completely scaring them away the first month when you have to submit 30 proposals in 40 days, it's kind of overwhelming if you haven't been in that type of environment. I kind of grew up in the environment, so I didn't know any different. If anybody else has ideas on how to do that, incorporate, you know, the greener folks, please feel free. We can take a couple minutes. And real quick, I'm not sure if we need a full 10-minute break, but perhaps we do want to take a 5-minute break. I know I only need about 15 minutes or less. I can talk pretty quickly for my presentation, but I love the dialogue that's happening here, and I hope that it's okay to pivot. If that's not, somebody from AEC send me a quick message. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I think I said when I did my little intro that I started at LJB as an intern. And for me, probably the best thing that happened for me was just the company proving that they were going to invest in me, that they, you know, many times I was taken to, you know, to a trade show where I really didn't have the set responsibility of you need to be selling the company. I was there to learn how to do it. So there were other people who were more seasoned and I was really just almost like job shadowing. I was learning how they answer questions, how they ask questions, without really the burden of the responsibility of having to do everything. So that was really helpful, and really it felt like they were investing in me for the long term because they, you know, they put the time in. I mean, I didn't need to be there. So, you know, so for the, so that they, you know, put that expense and investment in me for that. And similarly, you know, giving me, you know, real work to do, you know, that it was, even if it was side by side with, you know, somebody who was more seasoned, it wasn't just, you know, scanning pictures and, entering stuff in database. It was, here, draft this for the newsletter. And it might not be right, but we'll teach you and, fix, we'll guide you on that. So to do that in the beginning, it just really proved to me that they were invested. And so I have tried to then do that with anybody new who comes into LJB as well, that, give them some responsibility, but also give them a set way to mentor their growth and not expect them to know how to talk to clients immediately and to know how to do all of these things right out of the chute.
I want to point out, Jenny Waugh has said, Jenny's our new ACEC Ohio communications lead, right? Our chair. I believe that's correct. Okay, so she says that they allow the emerging professionals to create new service or vertical market focused plans and then go market themselves with the new ideas they have. That's impressive. I dig that a whole lot. Okay. Alrighty, so if we want to, it is, does anyone have any additional questions or any additional points they'd like to make?
Thanks for letting me share with you guys today.
Hearing. Yeah, great job, Sarah. Very, very informative, interesting, and then I love your personality. It definitely shines through, so thank you for that. So it is 11:33. I guess I can be flexible. Do you want to take a 5-minute or a 10-minute break, or do we want to just keep going? Does anybody need a bio break? No. Okay. Well, then we'll just keep going here. So I am going to share my screen. So Sarah, you have to stop sharing yours, I think, if it's not happening. Here we go.
Is that working, Tracy?
Yes, it is. Now it is. Okay, can everybody see the ACEC? I can't see everybody, so somebody just out, yeah. All right, great. All right, I'm going to move this over here. Okay, so everybody already knows me, I believe, unless you came late. I'm Tracy Hernandez, and I have over 20 years of experience in the engineering industry, and I recently made a change to the contractor side of the industry. I'll go into a little bit more about my background in just a moment, but today I'm going to speak to you on the topic of Gut Before Glory, something I like to refer to that. So, and using resources wisely to create meaningful content and packaging them to win. I do believe that the key positioning a firm is focusing on the content, the guts first, and then incorporating the graphic enhancements, or what I call the glory. There we go. So this is me. I'm super excited. Thank you to ACEC Ohio for having the first ever marketing forum. I hope these happen again. And I did some comments during the facilitation part that said that, those conversations and the discussions were great. So I hope that does to continue. As I said, I have over 20 years of experience. I worked on thousands. I'd be pushing tens of thousands of client responses during those 20 plus years. I decided to join a contractor recently. I spent 7 years as the Director of Marketing and Business Development with DGL. Very sad to leave DGL. And I know Megan's on here. I miss you. Happy belated birthday. I did work almost 2 years with Albert Kahn and Associates. They are a nationally recognized architectural engineering firm. And then I spent almost 15 years with SOE. And at the end of that part of my career, I was an associate and I managed operations for marketing for industrial, commercial, international business. And I traveled quite a bit throughout the States and China. Couple weeks there. I do live by the servant leader approach. I strive to be a real and upfront communicator, and I am extremely passionate and try to find bright spots even in the dark situations. So very similar to Sarah with her silver linings. So as marketers, we've all recycled RFQ and RFP responses that have to follow very specific requirements, right? So page counts, font sizes, responses can be 3, 10, 50 pages long, not always fun to write or compile. Or frankly read if you're looking at it from a client perspective. So I try to focus on how I can improve the client experience. So as you all know, proposals generally consist of these 5 areas. So I was trained through like SMPS and PSMJ and Zweig White about, issues, features, benefits, improve. So typically, those are the main sections of the proposals. And then qualification packages include these items. Obviously, all typically does not include cost, scopes, but the content I believe should be tailored versus utilizing, what's on our shelf or the boilerplate information. So content and design are both really important. Most of us are responsible for both roles or have been at some stage in our careers. In my opinion, your written content should never feel as though it's competing for attention against the design or vice versa. And when it comes down to it, your writing and design should be centered on the reader and their needs. So just again, to enhance the overall client experience. And I mean, frankly, you can't build trust with a client or a potential client without creating a great first impression with the content and design that's paired appropriately to improve the communication. And it is certainly a delicate balance. So today, I just want to remind and encourage you to create effective responses using a content first or guts before glory approach. And of course, utilize the existing resources to help you create the response. Concise and compelling writing conveys the ability to think clearly and strategically, and AEC clients value that in their project partners. So that's really the message we want to push out. And anyone engaged in the planning and the production of the AEC marketing proposals knows what an enormous undertaking it can be. It involves the creation and combination of existing resources into a solid document that adheres to the client's sometimes strict guidelines. So typically overseen by a marketer, although we all know there are many cooks in the kitchen when we are putting our proposals together, and of course, almost always on an accelerated timeline. So though proposals are one component of successful project pitches, they do help a firm earn a desired spot on a short list or at the interview table. Probably preaching to the choir here, but it's really important, right? But despite the significant resources devoted to generating these documents, they can sometimes get produced with a skewed focus in the visual elements, or we're trying to make content fit in within certain design elements or templated areas. And it's understandable. The graphic design, the presentation, and the packaging of proposals all enhance the overall effectiveness, but the words matter too. So to me, the words form the foundation. And there are some plays on words here. I did spend a lot of time in the civil structural engineering world, so I love a good pun or play on words. So even with RFP requirements, formats, processes, et cetera, as they continue to evolve, the words still function as the core element of the proposals, the messaging does. It does provide the infrastructure of the entire document. And certainly words alone won't result in the award. We have lots of factors that go into our proposal. Sometimes price is the major factor, but certainly utilizing messaging appropriately will position your team favorably for future stages of the pursuits. And then conversely, poor writing will help reviewers thin the herd and and shorten the shortlist. The words also inform and influence future marketing because proposal management and coordination are so demanding. Can I get an amen? It can be really easy to view the process or even attack the process as like a one and done exercise due to time constraints and other limitations. But I try to focus on the fact, if we're creating well-crafted content that can certainly be repurposed and reused in the future, that's, the way to go. So a follow-up on the new content is so important. And if you win the project, to me, the words can and should live on in future marketing materials. And even if pursuit doesn't ultimately succeed, the responses can certainly influence future efforts, especially, again, if it's a well-constructed piece. So again, preaching to the choir, stories captivate people. The storytelling element works. And so, it involves weaving facts and statistics and claims into the various narratives that showcase how our teams are solving problems, maybe overcoming an obstacle, learning lessons. Certainly, it's not always feasible with the constraints of an RFP, but I still always try to review the entire proposal draft with an eye toward identifying opportunities to change the responses into stories that carry on the theme. And again, the strong writing demonstrates strong thinking. So, our proposals providing an owner or the selection committee with a glimpse of what it's going to be like to work with our team on the project. So if we can make visualization with words, it's certainly helpful to positioning us for the win. And then, I do believe that compelling writing is the true differentiator. So again, having contributed to thousands and thousands of proposals throughout my career, I know that it can be challenging to take technical details, numerous points of views, and have a true disciplined approach to the content. So proposal writing, unlike graphic design, depends on the content contributed to from many different sources. And like I'm married to an engineer, but the way he writes versus the way a principal would write or the way that I would write all have a different tone of voice. So as marketers, being able to translate those various perspectives and tones into an engaging narrative and easy, but it's really important to ensure that the final document positions us as strongly and convincingly as possible. And again, or as a bonus, we can accomplish all of these things with the help of some existing resources that we have. So if you're like me, you who have put a ton of time and effort and other investments into producing content, and we definitely don't want to lose those. And we want to get as much mileage and value out of the content as possible. We don't like to create one-hit wonders, and marketing takes up a lot of our time. So one way to accomplish this by repurposing the existing content that you have and repackaging it and tailoring it for various uses. So again, repurposing the content is or can be more effective than creating new content from scratch every time. So sometimes we forget about all of the resources we have available to us. Obviously, we have firm service overviews. resumes, project case studies, or highlight sheets or project profiles. We all use different names for those. I love to use news articles, whether the firm, the media, or the client generated it. It does not matter to me. I just make sure that it's factual before I start claiming or calling it out. We have, strong website descriptions. We may have participated in white papers, blog posts, ACEC award submittals. It can include other qualifications, proposals that we've done solo, or even perhaps that we've teamed on. There's truly fantastic content available. Here are some of those other available resources.
Hey, Tracy.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I just was gonna shout out to you because there's a couple people commenting on it. Leanne shared, and I'm sure you have went through this in your career too. You've got people that are engineers who are like telling you how to be an expert marketer as if you needed the training. So how have you kind of overcome those situations?
Yes, I've had many opportunities throughout those since 1997. I can tell you that I was not always the best in my responses early on. As you grow, you learn how to communicate better, so you attract honey, or you attract more flies with honey than other things, correct? So I typically try to, and not typically, I always try to focus on my internal clients. So when I have my marketing hat on and my business development or sales hat on, like, I am there to position them to win. So I try to, some people call me a cheerleader. Sometimes it's not a compliment. I totally take it as a compliment. I'm really proud of the people that I work with, and I try to convey that to them. So I am on your side. I'm doing everything possible to help you and our team get the win. And again, that's something that, I've had to work on throughout the years. But, with regard to, I have said to people, I'm not telling you how to design things. Although I will tell you, there have been opportunities where they're looking for some innovations. I'm like, hey, I saw this the other day on YouTube. Sometimes they'll take it into consideration. But, I joke that I'm not an engineer, nor do I play one on TV. I don't have a technical background other than the fact that I was kind of raised by engineers, having this as my sole career industry, if you will. I feel like, just we're trying to get clients to trust us and trust firms and our project teams. I think that once you have developed trust with like your internal client, so, your project managers, whoever's contributing to the proposals, I feel that those conversations become easier. And, we marketing departments, but the firms are not marketing firms. That was hard for me to get used to at first. So one of the conversations I had with Sarah when we were talking about topics that we could have, and I told her, like, I didn't go to school for marketing thinking I was going to work in an engineering firm. I'm not even sure if I knew any engineers at the time. So, I thought I'd work for an agency, like there were various, was it Moonlighting, something, I'm 45. So like those types of shows were hot. Like I thought that'd be cool to work in an agency. And then I didn't want to leave the area really because my family lived here, and Toledo did not have a lot of Moonlighting-esque type advertising agencies, or like I couldn't really work from Woodville, Ohio. Like it was just a different situation. So I had to get creative and do some digging, and I found out that there was this opportunity at SSOE, and it was not an internship, but like a 6-month contract for I think it was their 50th anniversary way back when. So I had to quickly realize that even though marketing was really important to me, and it truly is what I love to do, that marketing was a support mechanism for the engineering firm. And I feel like not that it isn't important, but it is not in the mission, it's not part of, why we're in business. Is not for marketing. Marketing helps achieve the mission and the vision of the firm. So again, once I think, people embrace that, and you can have some frank conversations about that. Like, I understand my role in this company, and it is a benefit for you that, the engineers or the principals, approach a little bit differently and perhaps more open to trusting your contribution. Does that make sense?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I know there was a comment too, Brianna Wooten shared that, it's important for us to be humble, right? And sometimes just put ourselves in a box on the shelf. And I think I would concur with that. A lot of times people need a chance to be heard. And that can be a lot of it, just making sure that you're tapping into making sure you hear what was so important about the job from their perspective and helping make sure that's coming through.
Yes. And it also helps if you develop close relationships with people like who are in this forum where you can say, please tell me I'm not the only person who is experiencing this. Like,
Yeah, Becky,
it helps to be able to, not share firm secrets or specific pursuits, but it's nice to know that you're not alone, and then some helpful tips or advice on how other people are addressing those types of things. And, Sarah and I have, I've known Sarah for a really, really long time, like before either of us had children, probably were even married, maybe, I don't know. But because she was in a market, or she had a marketing background, I've always kind of talked to Sarah, and it was really cool to have some different types of experiences, but it's been super helpful now that she is in the industry. And I know when she first started, she would call and say, hey, have you ever experienced, why are the resumes all over the place? I said, yes, they are still all over the place for me, because it's like one of those things that you have to prioritize proposals over internal resources sometimes. And then, it's always usually a race to the finish. So
I think too, there was a comment from Becky around kind of feeling like you're never going to be kind of like part of the team because you're not an engineer. And it's funny because on Twitter, I labeled myself a marketer in a world of engineers. And it can absolutely feel that way. I know when I started, I was like, why is it so quiet in here? Like I came from ad agency world where there were like beer carts and people having a great time. I was just like, what am I doing?
Well, I can tell you that Lori Adams at DGL, some people have offices, some people are in a cube farm. I don't know if I've ever been in a cube farm for long. I'm really loud. And so they always push me in an office. So it's a bonus sometimes if you bring some loud marketing folks into the engineering world. Okay. So, and I just have a couple more slides left. I really want to keep us on track here in case people have to get off for other reasons. But I just want everybody to remember that, repurposing your content can go in either direction. So, if I've been involved in a white paper or like award submittal, I do try to break it up to make multiple case studies out of it or different stories so I can get the biggest bang for the buck, I guess. I've used, different call outs for quick blog posts or social media messaging. And then I do try to take new content from proposals or updated content, take that back to the originals to ensure that we always have the most up to date. I know it's always frustrating for the technical staff, the principals, as well as the marketing teams, that I've marked up that resume 3 times. Why do you still say I have 17 years of experience? I have 40 or whatever the case is. But, it to have, to try to take that time and get yourself caught up so that you are making the best use of time as well as your internal clients, really important. But I guess, again, just remember, I feel like anything and everything can be used or reused. So, so now again, I'm a content first person and do find it to be extremely helpful. But once you've developed all this compelling content and these great narratives and stories, what do you do with it? And so, after the fact that you have, communicated the firm's, values, beliefs, the benefits the client's going to get, solutions, after you've done all these things, I believe that's the time to incorporate high quality images, especially if you are sending a hard copy, to ensure that those images are of a higher resolution. There's various graphics to enhance your content available. I feel that there are times where we may not have the time to get aesthetically pleasing, right? But as long as our messaging is solid, or the guts of it is solid, then we can be well positioned. So with regard to the glory part, so now we've gone through the guts and we're at the glory. I typically find my inspiration from others. So print, digital advertising, and design that effectively blends the images to communicate core messaging. I look at magazines, industry brochures. I've worked for engineering firms that are full service with numerous markets. So my rule of thumb typically is, if I had to edit something that wasn't templated out, if it went to a healthcare client, I try to do a quick search on healthcare industry professionals are used to seeing. So in our area, I would look at maybe Mercy or ProMedica marketing materials to find inspiration on that. At DGL, ODOT was a huge client. Tried to read their tone and try to understand the way they were communicating to find, and the way to utilize graphics so that it was comfortable and familiar to them. It just pulls people in, I feel, when you're focusing on how your layout is. In addition to that, ad campaigns and those types of things, they do provide inspiration, but we all know that proposals are much more complex usually than, we can't just throw a movie poster together and that be done when the work. So we definitely want to use the design as a complement to the elements or the components of the overall communication. And then again, I miss my folks at DGL. I wanted to give them a little shout out here. But when it comes to client responses, I do try to create the designs that enhance or highlight the specific content. So anything that will the reader, the client, or the selection committee quickly understand how we can help them. So I try to use design elements and not necessarily graphic or, graphic design like Photoshop originals, but things that just help optimize the readability, certain call outs, using larger quotes for testimonials or specific statements, benefits that the firm can offer. And then, of course, I use project images, key personnel images, infographics. I still really enjoy those. On the previous page, I like the way the ACEC has utilized the buttons, and there's just like this overall consistency that helps support the overall tone and the overall brand. As I saw earlier, a logo is not necessarily a brand, it is part of the brand package. But in the end, if the graphics or the enhancements are not helping your client understand the message, I remove it. I typically don't put in things that don't directly relate to a specific proposal. And then in the end, I just to ensure that the overall consistency, even with your labeling, whether you're delivering it with via hard copy, email, or uploading it on a client site. So my final thoughts, just again, about utilizing the content before the design approach, so the guts before glory, is just ensuring that the messaging is there, and utilizing the existing, if you want to call it boilerplate, your existing resources, and just making small modifications to ensure that the client feels like you've actually taken the time to address and that you heard them to address their needs. And then, and like I said, most of us, especially those with municipal clients and in the transportation industry, certainly we have very strong limitations. Sometimes we can't even use color. So definitely be aware of what all of your client restrictions or requirements are prior to, investing that time. So that concludes what I had to share today. Certainly am available for, it's 12:01. If you want to stay on, I definitely am flexible and or answer any questions you may have, or certainly listen to your conversations. I think this has been extremely helpful, and hopefully you don't have a deadline filled Friday. I do not today, so I'm a little more flexible, but just thank you. Thanks to our panelists, to Sarah, to ACC Ohio for helping us, helping all of us come together. I think this has been, for me, it's been really beneficial. So